Welcome to the Teachers Retirement System Investment Meeting for October 7th, 2021. I'll start by calling the roll. John Adler,
Still here.
Thomas Brown.
Good morning again, Patricia.
Good morning. Natalie Green Giles.
Yes, I'm here.
David Gazansky.
Present.
Russell Buckley.
I'm here.
Deborah Penny.
Good morning.
Susanna Vickers.
Good morning, I'm here.
Good morning. All right, we have a quorum, so I'll turn it over to you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's go to the first item on the agenda, Passport Funds August 2021 Performance Review. And take it away, Michael Fulvio.
Can I interrupt for a moment, Madam
Oh,
Chair?
Robert, you just ruined my take it away. Okay.
I'm sorry, but we have a new member of the Rockatan team who's joined this call. I believe he's on, Devin Alexander. And I just wanted to, if we were all in person, it would be obvious, but since it's not, I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware that we've added another person to this relationship team, Devin Alexander, who joined the Rockatan team just about a week ago. And can I give him 30 seconds to introduce himself? Is that okay?
Sure, absolutely. Welcome, Devin.
Thank you, Robin. Devin Alexander. I've been on the team for roughly 4 days now, but brand new. Previously in a previous life at Deutsche Bank, BNP Paribas, Lehman Brothers, all in the capacity of a corporate investment banking, and now lending my hand wherever possible on the teachers team. Thank you for having me.
Welcome, Devin.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now back to our
Well, now we
scheduled
want
program.
Devin to go over this now.
Maybe next month.
Maybe next month. But certainly happy to have him have an extra set of hands. So I'll begin with the performance for the passport funds for the month of August, and everyone should have that report in the materials that were circulated. I just very quick at a high level, August, as you might recall, was an up month for global equity markets in contrast to what we've seen in what we saw in September, which we'll cover in a few moments. But really positive returns across the board for the passport funds as a result of the stronger equity market returns. And those returns for the funds ranged anywhere from 75 basis points for the balanced fund to about 4.5% for the sustainable equity fund. At the top of the report, you can see the diversified equity fund eclipsed the $20 billion in asset mark and ended the month about 20.3 billion. The return for that fund during the month of August was 2.4%. Absolute returns were bolstered by US equities, which in total you can see for the Russell 3000 index returned over 2.8% for the month. And relative results for the fund generally lagged their respective benchmarks. The fund's global composite index, you can see there, returned about 2.67%, and the hybrid benchmark returned about 2.5%. So while active management in the international composite contributed to the overall results during August, you can see softer relative results from the US active and defensive composite contributed to some of the lagging in relative results. The balanced fund with assets just shy of about $600 million slightly underperformed its composite benchmark. And then just below that, as you'll note, the international equity fund with about 250 million in assets. I noted earlier the relative contribution from international equity managers. You can see again that fund outperformed its composite benchmark by about 24 basis points. The sustainable equity fund had another strong month. You can see up about 4.5%, outperforming its underlying benchmark, the Russell 1000 index, which returned about 3.75 during the month. And year to date, that fund is handily ahead by about 5%. So continued strong results there. And then lastly, you can note that the two index funds at the bottom of the page, the US equity index fund with about 70 billion in assets, had about a 3% return for the month, and the international equity index with about 11 million in assets returned about 1.8%. So I'll pause there and see if there's any questions before covering September very briefly.
Any questions for Mike? I guess not.
Okie dokie. We will move ahead. For folks who have the September preliminary monthly benchmark report, I'll start at a high level and just note, we did see more market volatility in later September. That's continued into early October, but obviously a stark difference in terms of the direction of returns that show up on this page compared to what we looked at for the first couple months of the third quarter. So increased concerns around inflation and labor shortages, as well as uncertainty around Congress's ability to pass legislation to fund the government, increase the debt ceiling, all things that in more recent headlines this week seem to be getting addressed in some order, but also just some ongoing discussion around the infrastructure package as well. There's also with the likelihood of a Fed beginning to taper the monetary support later this year, just a bit more volatility in the markets, and that's showing up not only in the VIX, but you can see to end the month of September, U.S. equity markets as measured by the Russell 3000 index, for example, down about 4.5%. Not quite as negative returns from equity markets abroad. So the developed markets down about 2.9%, emerging markets down about 4%. So again, definitely different from a directional standpoint. All told, the global market composite benchmark for the diversified equity fund, which again, you'll recall is about 80% US, 20% non-US, down about 4.2% for the month. And the diversified equity fund's hybrid benchmark, which again includes the composite component for the defensive strategies, that was down about 3.9%. So a little bit of protection from the defensive strategies composite benchmark in terms of how that all rolls up. The balanced funds benchmark was down about 1.4% for the month. And then, as I noted earlier, you can see in the middle of the page, the international equity benchmarks, large caps down about 2.9, smaller caps down about 3.5%. And again, for the emerging markets, down about 4%. Obviously, one of the other things contributing to volatility in emerging markets during the period of late September and so far into October has been more volatility in markets around the news in China with respect to Evergrande and their ability to, finance their debt, and obviously concerns a little bit more broadly that might mean broader impact in China for the economy there. The sustainable equity fund's underlying strategy, you can see that was down about 5.4% for the month of September, and then beyond that, the index funds for the other two variable funds. So I'll pause there and see if there's any questions. Otherwise, I will turn it back to the chair.
Any questions for Mike?
Hey, I have one quick question, if I may.
Sure.
Just looking at, sorry, thank you. Looking at the Brown Advisory Sustainable Growth, and I see like the month down 5.42, and yet it's lagging the rest of the benchmarks on this sheet, and at the same time it's up ahead of every other fund fiscal year to date. I was wondering if you had any comment or could provide any insight on that. Just an interesting juxtaposition of those two numbers for me.
Yeah, a big part of that too is the growth value dynamic, and that strategy, as you'll recall, tends to be a growthier strategy. That's the same is true for, obviously we use the growth index to benchmark it. Where we did see value do a little bit better earlier in the year, we started to see that revert a little bit toward the end of the second quarter and the early part of the third. That's also led to a little bit of the broader results around active managers as well. But yes, no, you're spot on, Russell. So calendar year to date, that strategy is up about 19%. And it's not as, I would say it's not as growthy as the growth index, which has also, even though the growth index is up about 14%, having a little bit more of a value-oriented discipline, even though it's a growth strategy. We definitely think of it as a growth strategy, has served that strategy quite well for relative performance so far this year. It's going to be more diversified than the growth index.
Yeah, no, I think, okay, you put the nail on the head for me there. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Any other questions?
Oh, okay. I said a lot of good things. Any other questions for Mike? Anything else for public agenda, public session? Hearing none. Do I hear a motion to go into executive?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Do I hear a second?
Second,
Susanna?
Susanna.
Oh, David changed our
Sorry.
thing. Thank you, Susanna. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, for those of you leaving us, have a wonderful day. For those of you moving over, see you in a minute. Okay, we are back into public session, and Susan Stang, would you please report out?
Certainly. In executive session, there was a further discussion of an OFI, of an opportunistic fixed income investment that was discussed at last month's SIM. Consensus was reached. There was a further discussion on a public equity recommendation from last month's SIM. Consensus was reached. We received an overview and an update on an ongoing investment initiative within the public markets. There was a discussion following. We discussed a compliance issue at another pension system and the protections in place to guard against a similar occurrence at New York City.
Thank you very much. Anything else for public session? Okay, hearing nothing. Do I hear a motion to, someone say something? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Vickers. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.